Kattamarams, those graceful wooden crafts that dot the Indian seas, have served the traditional fishermen so well for centuries. The remarkable kattamaram has endured centuries of usage and is a living symbol of the native genius of the Indian fishermen.
തുറവിളിച്ചത്തം കെട്ടടി കുട്ടയും കൊണ്ട് പൊന്നേടി.
A vast fleet of these log rafts, numbering about 100,000 units, sustain the bulk of over 2 million people dependent on the small sector, traditional fisheries of the country. In South India, building a kattamaram is a community affair in the small fishing villages and a decentralized, labor-absorbing activity.
തുറവിളിച്ചത്തം കെട്ടടി കുട്ടയും കൊണ്ട് പൊന്നേടി. ചമ്പാരി കഞ്ഞോളം.
Fishing by catamaran is a traditional way of harvesting marine life without damaging the marine environment and its biodiversity. The sustainability of this traditional fishing practice is extremely important in view of the fact that India is the world's fourth largest fishing nation, accounting for over 4.39% of the global output. Among the marine fishermen in India, 27% are in Kerala. 65% of the marine production of Kerala is still landed by traditional crafts. Kerala had 26,271 traditional fishing crafts in 1980, of which 11,480 were kattamarams. In 1990, there were 30,459 traditional fishing crafts, of which kattamarams accounting for 15,090. Even though Kerala's land area is small comparatively, it enjoys 8% of India's coastline. Evolved over centuries, these artisanal, low-cost, environment-friendly crafts are next to perfect. They sustain millions of fisher folk and their families in the region. The kattamaram is not difficult to understand when you see the small size and fragility of the craft, pitching and tossing on the waves, yet going miles out to the sea using only the power of sail and oar. It is linked to a nostalgia about the past and the skills of fishermen in the days when there was no outboard engines and only cotton nets. But it is seen partly also as a loss, as a gradual disappearance of the skills and knowledge associated with the kattamaram and an earlier age. The stamina and hardiness of the fishermen in the old days is emphasized in stories like how they used to go to sea for 4 or 5 days at a stretch. They had a knowledge about everything natural, the sea, the fish. Since plywood boats and outboard engines have been introduced, they have been taken up with enthusiasm among coastal people. But this has not left the catamaran fishermen second-class citizens. Most of the men emphasize the superior nature of catamaran fishing. There is a strong belief that catamaran fishermen are different from those who have taken up plywood boat fishing, that they are stronger, more skilled, more knowledgeable, and altogether more macho. Over 60% of the total marine landings on the east coast are netted by these craft even during the present times, in spite of the introduction of mechanized fishing craft. The distinction between then and now, the hardship of the past and the ease of the present, the natural methods as opposed to the artificial, is to some extent mapped on the distinction between catamaran and plywood boat fishermen. Once the fish has been landed, it is sorted into the piles by the fishermen and one of the auctioneers, and sold to the wading fish vendors, commonly mostly on credit. A catamaran is most likely to achieve its maximum speed when its forward motion is not unduly disturbed by wave action. This is achieved in waters where the wavelength of the waves is somewhat greater than the waterline length of the hulls, or it is achieved by the design piercing the waves. They have been designed to cross a beachhead that has significant wave activity. They need to be able to cross the surf and also land back at the same beach. Traditionally, these would have a sail and a rigging for the same. This has led to it being said that catamarans are especially favorable in coastal waters. Catamarans are fashioned thick sections or shaped logs of wood lashed together by ropes. The demand is expected to grow every year with increasing fishermen population. The shortages in supply have resulted in phenomenal hikes in price in recent years. Compounding the problem is the fact that the traditional fishermen are a highly conservative community steeped in age-old practices in usage. A catamaran of the most preferred species, chinensis and falcataria, is currently priced at Rs 32,000 and 25,000 respectively, as against Rs 8,000 to 10,000 in 1980s. Since the very livelihood of fishermen depends on their craft material, they are not able to procure the timber of their choice at prices they can afford, and a crisis situation is currently prevailing, warranting immediate remedial measures. The bigger the catamaran, the bigger the fish catch he can bring to shore, and the more profit he can earn. Budgets are always tight for fishermen, and banks don't traditionally give them loans. He remains unbankable. The number of fishing trips undertaken by these units is also comparatively low. Inclement weather and lack of fish are said to be the main reasons keeping away for fishing. Fishermen reported that usually the catch is not more than 10 kilograms for most of the trips, and the annual earnings after meeting the operating expenses were less than 15,000 rupees.
கட்டமரம் கிடைக்கிறது ரொம்ப கஷ்டம். இப்போ போனால் சின்ன மீன் தான் கிடைக்குது. அது போனாலும் 200 ரூபா 500 ரூபா கிடைக்கும். அதை கொண்டு வந்து என்ன பண்ணுறது? கஷ்டமாக இருக்குது. யாத்தனை பண்ணுறதுக்கு காசு தேவையில்லை. வீட்டு பாடும் பார்க்கணும். வீட்டு செலவும் ரொம்ப ஜாஸ்தி. இப்போ எல்லாத்துலேயும் விலை ஏறிட்டு போகுது. என்ன பண்ணுறது?
Now in Kerala, these traditional coastal people face immediate challenges to their livelihoods, from unsustainable production patterns leading to resource degradation, intensified by coastal erosion and pollution of coastal waters. Due to reduction in fish catch, degradation of resources, uncertain employment settings, limited livelihood assets, and subsistence almost entirely from fishing impact these societies' livelihood options. Any fluctuation in the resource situation would translate into and be reflected in their livelihoods. In spite of all the odds, the champion craft can still graze our seas and bring in those bountiful catches.